Today we're going to learn solving quadratics by factoring part 1. This is the beginning of factoring, so we're just going to review some Algebra 1 stuff today. The next video is going to also be reviewing some Algebra 1 stuff, but the factoring will be a little bit harder. And then on day 3, we're actually going to get into solving the quadratics. So right now we're not solving quadratics, we're just factoring. Even though the title says solving quadratics by factoring, you've got to know how to factor first. So the very first thing we're going to factor is x squared plus 9x plus 20. And so remember, factoring is the opposite of foiling. This is the answer you get when you foiled. So we're going to undo the foiling process. And so remember from Algebra 1 that you want to multiply to get 20, but so we're multiplying to get 20 and we're adding to get positive 9x. So you always start with your two parentheses, and as long as the number in front of x squared is 1, what times itself is going to give us x squared, and it'll be x times x. And so that's how you start off your parentheses. The next step is to make your t-chart. And in Algebra 2, I want you to get to the point where you're not making the t-chart to solve these, that you're actually doing them in your head, in mental math or with your calculator. But in the beginning, I'm okay with you using the chart to help you get the answer. So we want to know what will multiply to give us 20 and add to give us 9. So what we're going to do is we're going to list everything that goes into 20. So we start with 1. So we have 1 and 20. We have 2 and 10. 3 doesn't work. We have 4 and 5. And the way that you know you're finished is that my next number would be 5 and it's in the other column, so I don't need to worry about it. So I know that I'm finished. I don't have to keep going. So then you add these. 1 plus 20 is 21. 2 plus 10 is not 22. It's 12. And 4 plus 5 is 9. And so 4 and 5 would be our answer because they multiply to give us 20, add to give us 9. So when I fill out my parentheses over here, I have x plus 4 and x plus 5. That would be my answer. Now to check your answer, you would FOIL this. You would say you do your first, x times x, so x squared. Outer, x times 5, so plus 5x. Inner, 4 times x. And last, 4 times 5. Combine your like terms. When we FOILed it, we got our original problem, so that is our answer. So we FOILed it to get x plus 4, x plus 5. The next problem is going to be x squared plus 11x plus 24. And so you're looking for what will multiply to give you 24, but add to give you 11. So you have x, and so 24, you have 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6, 5 doesn't work, and 6 is already on the other side, so we are finished. So multiply to give us 24, add to give us 11. So 1 and 24 would be 25, 14, 11, 10. Our answer is 3 and 8. So x plus 3, x plus 8. That's crazy. So you would FOIL this to check your answer. The next one, 9 plus 10x plus x squared. If you notice, this one is not in order from highest exponent to lowest exponent. It's easier to factor if we have that in that order, so go ahead and put it in that order. X squared plus 10x plus 9. And so some of you are starting to pick up that you can do this in your head without your chart, and that's fine. 9 only has two options. 1 times 9 is 9, and 3 times 3. So the only option there is 1 and 9, and so I have x plus 1 and x plus 9. Now some of you will have the question, I wrote my answer as x plus 9, x plus 1. Is that okay? Absolutely. Both of these answers would work. X plus 1, x plus 9, or x plus 9, x plus 1. Either way is a correct answer. So the next one is m squared minus 22m plus 21. Now this one's a little different because we threw the plus and the negative sign in there. So we list out our factors of 21. So we have 1 and 21, and we have 3 and 7. But they multiply to give us, hang on a second, so we multiply to give us 21, but they add to give us a negative 22. So that means both of these numbers either both have to be positive, because that will multiply to give me a positive, or they both have to be negative, and that would also multiply to give me a positive. But when they add, they give me a negative, which means both of these have to be negative. So we get negative 22 or negative 10. And so this is the one that works. So my parentheses would be m minus 1 and m minus 21. And that would be our answer because negative 1 times negative 21 multiply to give me positive 21, and they add to give me negative 22. Let's do another problem like that. So the next one is w squared minus 11w plus 28. And I want you to go ahead and pause the video, solve the problem, and then push play and see if you got the answer right. So hopefully you finished the problem. So we multiply to get 28, and we add to get negative 11. So 28, you have a 1 and 28, 2 and 14, 3 doesn't work, 4 and 7, 5 doesn't work, 6 doesn't work, and 7's already in there. So you have 1 and 20, and so if they multiply to give me a positive 28, but they add to give me a negative, so that means both of them have to be negative. So my answer would be w minus 4, w minus 7. The next problem, x squared plus 2x minus 15. And so in this one, we're multiplying to get a negative, but adding to get a positive. So that kind of changes our chart a little bit. They multiply to give us a negative number, add to give us a positive. So let's go ahead and still list everything that goes into 15. So 1 and 15, and 3 and 5. Those are our only options. Well, if they multiply to give me a negative, that means 1 has to be negative, 1 has to be positive. And if they add, when they add together, they give me a positive. That means the bigger number has to be positive. So in this case, when I add them up, I get 14 and 2. So that means negative 3 and 5 have to be my answer. So x minus 3, x plus 5. Next one, y squared plus 13y minus 48. So when I make this chart, I'm multiplying to get negative 48 and adding to get 13. So you have 1 and 48, 2 and 24, and just to be clear on how we're getting these numbers, you take 48 divided by 1, 48 divided by 2, 48 divided by 3, so you're looking for the whole numbers. So we have 3 and 16, 4 and 12, 5 doesn't work, and then we have 6 and 8, 7 doesn't work, and 8's in our other column, so we're finished. So when these multiply together, they give me a negative, so that means 1's negative, 1's positive. When they add, they give me a 13. So that means my bigger number has to be the positive one. And so what do you get? You get 47, 22, and 13. Once you get the answer, you don't have to keep going because there's only going to be that one that works. So we get y minus 3, y plus 16. And we have one problem that's left. R squared minus 2r minus 24. So we're multiplying to get a negative 24. So that means one number is positive, one number is negative. But when I add, I get a negative 2. So you have 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. So if they're one's positive, one's negative, and when they add, they give me a negative, that means the bigger number has to be negative. So I get negative 23, negative 10, negative 5, negative 2. So my answer is 4 and 6. So I have r plus 4, r minus 6. That concludes the first part of solving quadratics by factoring.